The U.S. war in Afghanistan has been going on for nearly 16 years. President Trump has so far rejected the proposals from his national security advisor for the next steps there. Speaking this week about the conflict, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said, quote, "To just say we're going to keep doing what we've been doing, the president is just not willing to accept that."
Erik Prince is founder of what was once the security firm Blackwater. He wants to send about 5,000 private military contractors to replace troops helping the Afghan army. He believes his plan would cut the annual cost of the war to less than $10 billion for an estimated $45 billion. He's now executive director and chairman of Frontier Services Group. Good morning.
Good morning.
Explain to us why you think this will work. But lots of governments listen to this and they say mercenaries, and they're opposed to mercenaries.
I think any American, left, right, or center, wants to figure out a way to put an end to the war in Afghanistan. Right now, you're spending more than the entire UK defense budget, the United States is, just in Afghanistan. So we've had as many as 140,000 troops. Now they're at about 9,000 troops and 26,000 contractors that the U.S. has. And as Secretary Mattis said, we're not winning there. So to restructure that, as I laid out in the Wall Street Journal article, you have to put someone clearly in charge. The interagency process, you've had 17 different commanders in 15 years. That's not even counting ambassadors or CIA station chiefs. So you have to have one person that is clearly in charge of all U.S. policy, spending, rules of engagement of the effort there.
This is a U.S. official in the State Department or something like that?
It would be a super envoy, a presidential envoy, a lead federal official. We've not had any unity of command for 17 years. Second, the U.S. is not doing any training or mentoring really at the battalion level where the rubber really meets the road. So this plan, as I lay out, puts contracted people, attaching them to the Afghan army for the long term at the battalion level, living with, training with,
but are these contract people going to be boots on the ground? They're engaged in the battle. And are they, by definition, therefore, mercenaries hired by the U.S. government?
Actually, the way the United Nations defines mercenaries, by being attached to the Afghan army, they would not be mercenaries. So they would be contracted people, professionals, former special operations veterans that have experience in that theater to go do that work.
And so what does Mattis think of this?
He likes the analysis of the problem, but he doesn't necessarily like the idea that you'd send contractors.
He doesn't like your idea, but he likes the idea, as he has said, that the Afghan war, we're not winning.
Yes, well, he said that, but he's also said, I'm told, that the mentoring at the ground level, air support, and governance support, those three things I lay out in that plan, that basically puts a patch, it puts training wheels on the Afghan forces and keeps them upright, and it would set the stage for the drawdown of the 9,000 Americans and 26,000 other contractors to go from $45 billion in spend to less than 10. That supports your Afghan forces, and it keeps U.S. Special Operations Forces there as well. So,
General McMaster also very skeptical about this plan, as are Afghan officials. Afghanistan's ambassador said to me, contractors simply do not win wars. You need their buy-in in order to have your men, if they go into the situation, protected legally. How do you persuade them?
Look, contractors are there in a big way now. This is a slight alteration of how they'd be used.
Into combat-like situations.
Sure, but it's not a private army. They're there attaching to the Afghan army. They're basically, imagine them as skeletal support on which each Afghan battalion is built around. Look, the Afghan Special Forces are functional. They do well. They conduct 70, 80% of the offensive missions. They are mentored in exactly this way by U.S. Special Forces. The problem is the U.S. Army does not have enough sergeants. They can't send 4,000 sergeants and above to go do this mission.
But wasn't the strategy, Eric, to help the Afghans fight the war themselves?
Absolutely.
That has been the strategy for 15 years. It is now the longest war in American history.
And this completes that strategy. When U.S. forces go there, they go there for 6 or 9 months. And when they leave, all that local area knowledge and experience leaves with them. This model allows contractors to go in.
But it should be left with the Afghans. They should have it. That's the point.
I agree. But putting mentors in at the battalion level allows them to attach and to know that area, to know that valley, to know the local government officials in that area. That gives you multi-year continuity, because when a U.S. guy goes in, like I said, he goes in for 9 months and he leaves, and that local knowledge leaves with him.
This has been a really long, drawn-out process for the Trump administration. They're still struggling with this strategy. Steve Bannon, Jared Kushner, are said to be very supportive of your idea. Do you know what the president thinks?
I don't. I haven't briefed him on it yet, but
Do you plan to?
I hope to. Look, there's still Americans dying there. I think, like I said, any American, left, right, or center, wants to figure out a way to cauterize this wound. 16 years is enough. We have another $1 trillion in healthcare costs that we're going to owe for the Afghan war. So let's bring it to a close. People might not like the idea of using contractors for that. Let's get used to that idea. It's better than having American soldiers there endlessly. Are we going to be having this conversation in another 10 years?
I have a question about your firm, Global Security Services. Could that company be involved, and wouldn't that present a conflict of interest?
Look, if it comes to a bid or whatever, if someone's able to come up with a solution that saves the taxpayers $40 billion, I think anyone should compete and do that.
Would you be profiting from the war?
Well, we're not there now, but any vendor that solves that solution, that's capitalism. That's what it's about.
So you believe your sister is in the administration, of course, Education Secretary
Yep.
Betsy DeVos. That would not preclude you from being able to bid on this, to be clear.
Of course not.
One other question about Blackwater. Two former Blackwater colleagues had their sentence overturned.
Yes.
Do you expect the third?
No, what happened, the guy's murder conviction was thrown out. That was the second time the Justice Department tried to prosecute him. And the sentence that was thrown at the other three guys was also thrown out for being cruel and unusual under the Eighth Amendment.
So what remains?
It remains to determine what sentences those guys do get now. They have to go for resentencing.
But doesn't this raise concerns about how would you tackle this kind of situation in Afghanistan?
Sure.
You need to get those legal protections because that's what
And have
was
a
the trouble
clearly defined accountability method. You could use the UCMJ. Okay, I think the
Military Court of Justice,
Uniform Code of Military Justice, a military trial in Afghanistan under U.S. military law. Any contractor that goes to do that job would be happy to sign up for that law.
you'd have to negotiate that with the Afghan government.
Sure.
And they're skeptical, but you think you can win them over.
The Afghan government doesn't want to be abandoned. They know. I mean, look, there's the argument to say just pull out of Afghanistan completely. That would be bad. I think within 6 months or 12 months, you'd see a Taliban flag flying over the U.S.
In fact, that's what they think happened last time.
Being abandoned.
Yes.
Sure.
And they raise that question all the time.
And if that happens in Afghanistan, that's a rally cry for every crazy jihadi around the world.
Thank you for coming, Erik.
Thank you, Erik.
Thanks.